Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are going to be scaping the little cube next to me here. In my last video, I basically finished off planting the half moon tank that you guys see over there. The fish and the shrimp that are in the half moon tank and the snails, they were all in the nano cube. And I had a few plants in here as well, and well, one big dragon stone filled with anubias. In order to obviously rescape the cube, I had to obviously dismantle this one completely and transfer all the animals over to the half moon tank. If you guys want to check out how I created the half moon tank, I'll leave a tag up here so you guys can go check that out. The thumbnail is most probably going to give it away, but yeah, I want to set up a Betta Paradise. Now, I've never had a Betta in my life, so I really do want to get one, and my wife especially wants to really get one. The idea behind the cube as well was to set it up as cheaply as possible to show all of you guys that having a very nice scape and a very nice planted scape doesn't need to be expensive. Now, the cube I bought a few years ago secondhand, and it only cost me, I think, about 20 euros or something, and it was literally only the cube. Now, I do have an old filter from the half moon tank, and I do have some lights as well already that I bought also a few years ago. If one takes a look around on secondhand marketplaces, you can find secondhand filters and lights to keep the price down low. Now, for the substrate, for the hardscape, and for the plants, you can also find secondhand materials as well. One just has to obviously look around. I did find a few stones that were sold secondhand that I picked up, yet I do have quite a few things lying around still from previous scapes that I'm going to be reusing in the cube to obviously just keep the price down low. So I would say let's get started. The first thing I want to do is still add a frosted background to the tank, and basically then we can set up the substrate and add the hardscape. Then after that we can add plants and obviously set up the aquarium to get the Betta at some point. Now that the frosted window film is on, we can start with the substrate layer. And what I like to do is I like to take some root tabs. Now, these root tabs here are from Nano, and they are also very, very inexpensive. I think it's around about 10 or 12 euros, and you get 40 quite large and decent sized root tabs that you can add to your tanks. I'm not going to be adding them into the substrate as they are. I'm going to be crushing them up into a fine powder, and that way I can give the entire base of the substrate layer a coating or a layer of nutrients for the plants. So wherever the roots want to go, they've always got some nutrients handy. So let's go crush some up, and then we can start the substrate layer, and once that's done, then we can actually start the scaping of the hardscape. Now that we have our root tabs all crushed up into a fine powder, it's basically just give it a sprinkle amongst the bottom. Try and get a nice little layer. This way the plants are going to have nutrients all around the tank to go get. Now that my nutrient layer is down, I want to cap it all off, and capping it all off is essential, especially since you don't want the nutrients to basically leach out into your water column. This is going to lead to quite severe algae outbreaks, so I want to cap it all off. Now, what I like to do is I like to take lava rocks. A bag of lava rocks basically is extremely inexpensive. I bought an entire bag of 25 kilos for around about 10 euros. Lava rock is just an amazing rock. It's porous, it's going to let water through everywhere, it's going to be a breeding ground for beneficial bacteria. And this is just going to give it the first layer of the substrate so that water can still get to the very, very bottom of your substrate, so that your substrate does not get stagnant and actually start fouling. So I'm just going to start pouring in some lava rock, and then we're going to add some aqua soil on the top of it. Now, aqua soil, yes, it is a little bit more pricey, but again, I bought this bag here, which is an 8-liter bag, I think somewhere around, well, I would say 15 to 20 euros, somewhere in between there. And for the price to get an entire bag like this, you can actually you can actually scape quite a few tanks. And this is also just going to give the roots another source of nutrients. And yeah, the clay-based media also reduces the pH of your water. So if you do have a higher pH coming from your tap water, this is going to reduce it and obviously help plant growth as well. Plus, this is also going to be essential to let water through to the very, very bottom layer of your substrate. So do invest in a bag of aqua soil. I can only highly recommend it. But yes, let's start adding the 2 layers, and then we can cap it all off with sand. Okay, I have an entire bag of sand. Now, I went to my local hardware store and bought 2 bags of 25 kilos of sand. Sand is pretty cheap, so obviously to keep the price down low of the cube tank, I bought 2 bags of sand. Now, both bags of sand that I bought were, I would say, roughly together around about 30 euros, so 15 euros a bag, so 15 euros for 25 kilos, which is quite a good deal. Now, you could go even cheaper, and that is to get pool filter sand, which you can actually get at any, hardware store, garden center, and also any, pool shop in the sense. And a bag of 25 kilo, I mean, I have to look up the price again, but I'm guessing somewhere around 10 euros, maybe even cheaper. And that is actually even cheaper than what I actually have now. You don't need to actually spend a lot of money on name brand sands. Just go to your local hardware store. They will have a plethora of variety of sand and colors. And I'm going to be using this one. I did use both sands, mix them up a little bit, since the one that I'm using now is about a grain size of 1 to 2 millimeters. The other sand that I have is a very, very fine sand. The fine sand I don't want to use over the aqua soil because it's either going to go in between all of the aqua soil and compact too much. So I want to use the bigger grain size to give it a little bit more of, water circulation through the substrate. Now I'm going to stop talking now and actually cap off the aqua soil. And then, as mentioned again, we can, carry on with the hardscape. So let's cap off the sand. So here's all the hardscape that I'm going to be using for the cube. And I've got 2 very, very big pieces of spider wood that I definitely want to use. I'm trying to get the scape to go out of the tank, and I think that's going to look very, very cool. And I have some Ceru stone. The Ceru stone I got secondhand off the secondhand marketplaces. Now, I found a seller that took down his existing Aquascape, and he was basically selling the stones, and I got them for very, very cheap. Now, I got 5 stones here for 5 euros, so 1 euro for each stone, which is an absolute bargain. Hardscape is extremely expensive. For the wood pieces here alone, I think I paid roughly around about 70 euros. So that was quite the investment. Unfortunately, finding wood in secondhand marketplaces is quite difficult. Not many people actually sell their hardscape, though if you find somebody that is selling hardscape like wood or stone, definitely jump onto it. It's going to be cheaper than actually buying it in the shops. Wood, I just couldn't find, nice pieces of wood I just couldn't find anywhere secondhand, so I bought these 2 pieces. I also still have a few smaller bits and pieces of spider wood from the previous scape of the Half Moon tank, where I also unfortunately had to invest in some wood, and I chopped all of these pieces off. Maybe I can integrate them into the bigger structure, but that's about it. I also bought a box of natural gravel, this one here being Rio Shingo from Danele. I absolutely love this stuff. The texture of it just looks really, really good. It is also an unnecessary expense. You could also just go to your local river. Depending on where you obviously live, do look up the rules and regulations if you can take stones from your local river and wood and pebbles. Here where I live, I do know for a fact that you can take a few stones and a few pebbles. Obviously, if you go there with an entire wheelbarrow, that is illegal. So this is what I'm going to be using. So I would say, let's see if we can make this wood structure fit, add the stones and glue everything together, since the wood is definitely going to float up, but let's get cracking. Okay, so far I came up with this. I made the two big pieces of spider wood fit. I think it actually looks quite cool, giving it a nice little angle. It gives me quite a bit of space to plant some plants in the front, have a little bit of space in the back here for some stem plants. Now I'm just going to try and add some stones and maybe a little bit more sand in the bottom just to fill up the little space there so that you don't have a big gap. But I think that this is looking quite cool so far. Now, I did break off quite a few twigs and pieces to make it fit a little bit better. So always be aware that you can always break things off to make them fit better. It's just that to replace them again is, either not going to happen, or you need to glue everything back together again, and that could be a little bit unsightly. But I think that this looks good so far. So I'm going to continue and see where this takes me. Okay, there we go. The main hardscape is all in. I am very, very pleased with the way that it turned out. I absolutely love the way it looks. Now comes the tedious task of gluing everything together, since, the wood is definitely going to, float away if I fill it up with water. So I am going to try and get my hands in between all the nooks and crannies and glue it together. Now, to glue it all together, I'm going to be using some liquid superglue. This is cyanoacrylate superglue, which is absolutely harmless once it completely dries out, so it's not going to affect the water or the water chemistry. And I'm going to use some tissue paper, or toilet paper in my case, and take a little bit of toilet paper, scrunch it up, obviously press it into any sort of crack that I can get to where the wood and the stone meet, and basically just pour the super glue onto that. The toilet paper or kitchen paper or even cotton wool is going to soak it all up and basically harden instantly and give it a solid bond between the wood and the rock. This is going to keep the wood in place and also just keep the wood together to the rocks. Now, I do hope that the stones are going to be enough to keep the wood down. I will have to see. It might still want to try and float away once I fill it up with water. But otherwise, if it does, I'm just going to put a big stone on top of the wood and weigh it down. But for now, I'm going to glue everything together, and then the scape is almost done. And there we go, the hardscape is done. Now I did still add the decorative stones around the hardscape. I think that just gives it a little bit of a natural look and a little bit pop of color. I'm absolutely pleased the way that it turned out. If you guys did enjoy the video, leave a like and a comment down below, subscribe and hit the notification bell not to miss out on future content and the planting of the cube. That's going to be next for today. Unfortunately, I'm going to be calling it here. So I hope you guys enjoyed it and I'll catch you in the next one.